All right, so let's talk about Dark Dimension 7 here and what I'm going to be calling the free-to-play, non-rushing approach to getting Mephisto here in Marvel Strike Force. I want to talk about a couple of things. Number one, how to approach the store, what to purchase in the store, should you purchase, and then ultimately talk about budget as it pertains to purchasing things here in the store on a daily basis. I'm also going to be talking about characters, right? Like who are the best characters I think that you could bring into Dark Dimension 7 right now. And then also talk about like kind of like what my plan looks like here in regards to bringing in characters into Dark Dimension 7. So let's start off with the store. Like I said, the question here is what to purchase. Should you purchase? Because let's be real, like 400K for one mini unique here is very steep. 200K for 10 pieces of origin gear is also very steep as well. And this one is the steepest price. 800K here for the specific hero unique for a character is a very steep price. Now, I think if you're going to be looking to purchase Gear Tier 19s in the store, I think it's a choice. I wouldn't necessarily say it's a bad choice, but it's probably not the greatest choice when you have other things that you need to build too, like character levels and putting in equipping gear, things like that. I don't think that's going to be the best. So like mini uniques, I would stay away from, but certain specific hero uniques though, maybe you should consider those. And I'm specifically talking about a piece that you would need here for a character like Apocalypse, or a piece that you would need here for a character like Super Scroll. These two characters are the best characters in the game outside of Mephisto. So right now for myself, whenever I do see alien spores, yes, even if it's 800K, I do grab it. And if I see Astral Energy, even though it is 800K, I do also grab that as well, because those two characters are so dynamic and they're so impactful for me in every single game mode outside of raids, whether it's, you know, Arena, of course, you got Cosmic Crucible, you have Alliance War. There's so much impact that these characters are having on my individual roster, and I would like to be able to get them up to Gear Tier 19 as quickly as possible. Also, Beta Red Bill, who's already gone through Dark Dimension, of course, we know was the first one to go through Dark Dimension, has mentioned that in the first non-specific section for Dark Dimension 7, that these two, you're either going to want both characters or at least one of the characters to be able to get through that section there. So therefore, for me, I am looking at Alien Spores and Astral Energy to grab for those two characters. But I will also say there's one other piece that you're probably going to get bottlenecked on. And if you could kind of just like slowly chip away at it, death by 1,000 paper cuts, right? If you could slowly chip away at it here, then that will probably help you out. And it is also called Osmium, right? Because there's going to be 4 characters that you're probably going to want to bring into Dark Dimension, where grabbing Osmium in the store when you see it for 800K, although it sucks, might be a good idea, right? Because you're going to want to bring in Gambit, probably, definitely Nightcrawler. You're going to absolutely want to bring in Fall, and you're probably also going to want to bring in Nova as well for your legendary section. So with that being said, you're probably going to, when you see Osmium here, be that you're going to need so much of it, I would also consider grabbing that here in the store. But the mini uniques, nah, baby, I ain't doing that. I wouldn't recommend you to do that either. I would definitely stay away from that. Now, as it pertains to budget, right? We got to talk about budget here. Now, there was somebody that had mentioned this, and I'll pull this up. Well, actually, I don't have the specific graphic here, but there was somebody that mentioned that you currently get 125 million gold per month here as a free-to-play player. I believe this is probably more so like end game per se, but either way, as a free-to-play player, you get 125 million gold. So if you kind of divide that here by 30 days of the month, then that means that you have a budget here of about 4.1 million gold that you can spend per day in Marvel Strike Force. If it's 31 days, and you can do the math accordingly to that here. So the way that I kind of budget things out, this is how I do it. I spend 3 million on character upgrades, or 2.5 million on character upgrades here. 3 million is more like it though, because if I'm bringing a character from like 95 up, it's about 3 million to get them up to 2 levels every single day. So about 3 million or so per day. And then if I am going to be grabbing one of these pieces here in the store for 800K, then that means that I would have spent 3.8 million or 3.9 million gold, which is under that $4 million budget, that $4 million gold budget that I want to spend per day. So that's the way that I'm currently doing it right now. And if you are in the same boat where, you know, you're getting 125 million gold free to play every single month as well, then that's the way that I would do it and budget things out. Or if you do, let's say you see Astral Energy and then you also see Alien Spores, you know that that's going to be 1.6 million, then you adjust your character upgrades accordingly. And you might be saying, oh, that's kind of boring, I don't want to have to do that, it's going to slow down my upgrades. That's the risk that you are going to take if you choose to purchase anything here in the store. So the option is to not purchase it and just kind of just open up your orbs as you get them from raids and whatever, participate in the events and get the gear that way. That is also an option too. I'm just saying, for those particular pieces there, that's what I would do here in the store if I were you. Also, I would say this too, like if you're in a position where you're very low on gold, maybe take a month where you're only spending like 2 million gold a day on characters, and then maybe a million gold on your store buys here, because I do know that some people are also still purchasing things like this, like your teal hero uniques too. So either way, just make sure that you're budgeting things out. Just keep that budget in mind as you go about spending your gold. All right, so let's talk a little bit here about characters. So if I'm talking about characters here, first and foremost, I gotta say this, man. There's like 4 different ways to build for Dark Dimension 7, right? Like number 1, it's like best to be optimal. Like what's gonna get me through these nodes fast? Like if you're playing that game still right now, like I'm sorry, like that's not something that you should be doing. The race has already been won. It's done. I wouldn't do that if I were you. Then the second option is like the best outside of Dark Dimension, but they're optimal to be able to get you through the nodes well enough, right? Then the third option is don't care about optimal. I just want what's best outside of Dark Dimension. That's all I care about. What am I going to use when I'm done with Dark Dimension? I'll get Mephisto when I get Mephisto. And then the fourth option is people who just kind of do whatever it is that they want. The boat that I'm in is best outside of Dark Dimension, but optimal enough to be able to get me through the nodes. So that's kind of the way that I'm looking at my selections here for characters. I will say this too, like some of the characters that we're going to be discussing right now, in a few months, once the meta changes, this list is probably going to change as well, right? But for me, as it pertains to City, now ignore these 3 characters except for maybe one that we'll talk about on this list here. I think the locks for me and what I'm seeing right now is that Robbie and Vulture are pretty much basically 2 characters that you absolutely want to bring into those nodes. They're pretty much basically on every comp that I've seen so far for people who are going through Dark Dimension 7 right now, or who've already completed Dark Dimension 7, that Robbie and Vulture are the main locks on those teams. Then you have some maybe options right here where you have Miss Marvel Hardlight, but I'll talk about why to me she's a very big question mark on this City non-legendary list here. I should have said that in the beginning. The City non-legendary list is what we're talking about here. Then you have a character like Lizard. You can kind of run it back, right? With Dark Dimension 6, you can run it back with a character like Lizard, and then you can also run it back with a character like Kraven. The superior 6 characters, or sinister 12 characters here, Vulture, Lizard, and Kraven, are part of the best faction, I think, in the game right now. The most versatile faction in the game, because they can be used pretty much in every single game mode. Like Vulture, Kraven, and Green Goblin Classic I use on a team with Black Knight and Apocalypse right now in Arena. So there's value that you're gonna get outside of bringing them into Dark Dimension there. The Superior 6 team is great. There's an Inferior 6, then there's Superior 6 that you can use inside of Alliance War. There's Cosmic Crucible, where they're amazing as well. So I think in general, investing into any Sinister Superior 6 characters is not terrible, as long as it doesn't hurt you for gear. And they're also they're multi-trait characters too. So you have like bio, then you have tech here, and then for Kraven, he's a skill character. So from like a gear perspective, there's some versatility there that you can use with some of these characters. But Miss Marvel Hardlight, the biggest question mark for me with her is that she does take mutant gear. And I mentioned Apocalypse already, who I know I'm going to be bringing in in that first section to use there, and also then use them later on in the Mythic section. The issue for me with Hardlight is that because she's a mutant character, that's going to hurt me or handicap me significantly in the global section, because I might want to go full extreme there, or I may want to use a good amount of extreme characters. So I could end up in a situation here where I got 5 or 6 characters that are all mutant characters, and that is going to severely hamper my ability to be able to get through it efficiently enough. So I may not want to bring in a character like Miss Marvel Hardlight, which is the reason why I mentioned maybe bringing in Lizard, maybe bringing in Kraven, And then my fifth alternate option would probably be a character like Pavitra. I'm hearing that that he's done decently well so far for some of these runs. Might be a character I consider. Also, Spider-Man Noir is another character to take a look at as well. I consider Firestar, but of course she's also a mutant character, so therefore I've decided not to probably go in that direction too. So because of I want to make sure that I don't go too heavy on the traits like mutant or bio or tech. I don't want to go too heavy on that. I want to at least limit it to where I'm only bringing in 5 of each, or max 5 for each particular kind of trait there, which is the reason why I said maybe not Hardlight. But initially, if you ask me right now, I would say Robbie, Vulture, Lizard, Craven, and then maybe Pavitra, or maybe you bring in Pavitra and then you also bring in Spider-Man Noir, and maybe you drop Lizard. It all depends on what works there for you. But Robbie and Vulture are definitely locks for me in this particular section. Then let's take a look here at the global section, which is where it kind of gets a little bit more interesting. You have options, but they're not as, I guess, prominent. I don't know. Let's talk about it here. So for the global section, without question, right, we're going to be bringing in Black Knight. Like, there's no question about it. We're going to be bringing in Black Knight. He's amazing. One of the best characters in the game. He's top 5 for me as a pick of a character right now is Black Knight. You got to bring him in. Like, I think he's a lock. The next lock character for me would be Nightcrawler. Also amazing kit. I think it would be a mistake not to bring in Nightcrawler. But then the question becomes, all right, do I want to bring in the rest of the extreme characters? Do I want to bring in Forge? Do I want to bring in Sunspot? Do I want to bring in Gambit? Understand that if I bring in Nightcrawler, who takes Osmium, and then I decide to go with Gambit, who also then takes Osmium, that once again, I might be kind of hampering myself where that is concerned. So if the option is, okay, I'm going to bring in Nightcrawler, and then I'm going to be bringing in Black Knight, 3 other options that could work for you, although one is still mutant, would be to bring in the Cabal team. I've seen this work so far. Some players have done it. A couple players have already done it where they brought in Namor, they brought in Iron Patriot. That's not Iron Patriot. My Iron Patriot's way down here. They brought in Iron Patriot, and then they've also brought in bringing in Leader. I kind of like the versatility of this because at least with Iron Patriot, he does take tech gear. Tech, you're probably gonna get a little heavy on. I think there's like 4 characters that are tech characters that you would bring in here with like Vulture. Then there's like Iron Patriot, and then later on we'll talk about some other characters too. So that the tech trait is not gonna be too high if you choose to go in that direction. There's also Leader, where I think my Leader is like I really should have favorited these before I started doing this video. Then you have Leader, who is a bio character. So it's a little bit spread out there in terms of the gear that you can use for this character. And then of course, Namor, while he is a mutant character, if you're not going to be bringing in Forge, Sunspot, Gambit, as to fill out the rest of your team with Black Knight and Nightcrawler, they provide a little bit of versatility. And the Cabal team is Cosmic Crucible team. They're going to be valuable for a while because Cosmic Crucible is probably the second most important game mode, well, third most important game mode in Marvel Strike Force. A lot of people really care about Cosmic Crucible. So if you don't care about Cosmic Crucible, then maybe Cabal is not good. Maybe you want to try to bring in the rest of the extreme team, but just understand that your mutant exhaustion is going to be there. So I would say, hey, if you're going with Nightcrawler, then you're going to fill in the 3-piece with Forge, Sunspot, Gambit as your 3. Then the next option, if you don't want to do that, would then be Leader, Iron Patriot, Namor. And then you can also even consider bringing in a character like Quicksilver as an alternate character, but just keep in mind that he's also he's Mystic too, so that also could help to alleviate some of the pressure. But you're going to run into some issues with Mystic characters here because of your Cosmic section and already bringing in Robbie, and then you might be bringing in Doom and Dormammu, so Quicksilver may not be a good alternate option there. But that's what I would say here for like your global section. And then we go into Cosmic, which is way more straightforward. There really isn't much deliberation on the Cosmic section here. For Cosmic, there's 4 locks here because they're really kind of the only options that make sense. It would be Kang, Val, and then it's the Eternals, right? Like there really aren't a ton of other options that are available to you here. Like you don't want to bring in Deathpool. not by herself. She's also a mystic character too, so it's not like you're really trading anything off by bringing in Deathpool and dropping another character. You could, I would say, like as a fifth character, you're probably going to end up bringing in Void Knight anyways. That's why I would go in. I would say, like for the Cosmic section, it's Kang, it's Vol, it's Eternals, and then you probably bring in Void Knight as your fifth character. Another alternative I think that I've seen some people do is Photon. I don't know if that's like an optimal option outside of Dark Dimension. Neither really is Eternals, like outside of Dark Dimension either, but they are so good in Dark Dimension, and because there's some of your limited cosmic options, it does make sense to bring in these two characters. So your cosmic section is very, very, very slim. It's Kang, Vol, Eternals, Void Knight, and then you're just whoever's cheap, right? It's kind of who you're bringing in. Whoever's cheap, that's not going to hurt you on some other sections, but that's pretty much basically what you have available here for your cosmic section. And then legendary, and like I said, remember, Vol is also osmium, which is the reason why I mentioned to purchase some of that stuff there in the store. And then let's go over to the legendary section, which I think is also very straightforward as well. I think it's Nova, Black Cat. Then I like Green Goblin Classic as well, but I like to pair those three characters up with Doc Ock. Doc Ock has good synergy with Green Goblin. Also, Doc Ock can help out with some blocks and things like that with the charges. You get an extra minion that's out there that can do some stuff, you know, for your Terminator Rewind. That could be helpful. And then your fifth character there in that section, I would say probably either Red Hulk or the next legendary that comes out. That's really kind of what the legendary section is. It's Red Hulk or the next legendary that comes out. I considered Rogue, but then Rogue is another mutant character. So if you went pretty mutant heavy in global, then you may not want to go mutant. You may not want to have an additional mutant character in Rogue that could be very, you know, strenuous on your gear. Once again, highlighted Nova. Remember, he also takes osmium. So that's one of the reasons why I said you could continue to purchase that stuff in the store here. But I think the locks, Nova, Black Cat, Green Goblin, and Doc Ock, I think are good lock characters. You wouldn't want to bring in Morgan. Keep in mind too that Morgan is also osmium, so she would be a fifth character. So if you're even considering her, just understand too that that's more osmium that you're gonna need. She's also a mystic character too. You already got Robbie, you got Eternals, you got Vol, you're gonna have Dormammu or Doom. You're getting heavy again into that mystic gear. So I really think that Nova, Black Cat, Doc Ock, and Green Goblin Classic, all characters that are still good. I don't use Black Cat as much anymore, to be honest with you, neither on defense or on offense. Like, she may get into like a couple matches a week for me on offense in Arena, but not as much anymore. So, but she's still valuable on defense in a lot of different areas. So still can find some value for her here. And Doc Ock, I use so much in Cosmic Crucible and Alliance War. So there's some good value that you can get out of him there. And then the next section, which is like your mythic section, this one's easy. You only need 4 characters. Your fifth character is going to be on your second run when you have Mephisto. That's going to be your fifth character. But for your mythic section here, it's what, APOC, Super Skrull, you got Kestrel. And then I'm seeing people bring in more Dr. Doom than they are bringing in Dormammu. I don't know the specific reason as to that of yet, but I do know that I'm seeing more Doom than I am seeing Dormammu at the moment. So something to consider, I think, because of the nose and like Black Cats and things like that. I think Dormammu is doesn't do as well in those nodes, or like his value is kind of lost at that point in time. That's the reason why I think a lot of people are getting rid of or not using Dormammu and probably throwing in Doom. But I need some more specifics on what that looks like. So this is kind of like my plan right now. Like, my tentative plan is, hey, I'm highlighting these characters. I am looking at potentially being able to bring them up. Apocalypse and Super Skrull are my first characters that I want to get to gear tier 19. And then I'm going to kind of just look and see what other characters get released into Marvel Strike Force. And then I'll decide to probably bring some characters up. And but like I said, really the first characters are Super Skrull and Apocalypse, and then we'll see what happens on the next section. But that is my approach here to Dark Dimension 7. That's what I'm doing in the store here. of course, you know, as I continue to get the orbs from the raids, I'm opening those up and I'm wishing and hoping and praying that it's pieces I can put on Scroll and Apocalypse. But apart from that, really not rushing into the content here, because there really is no reason for you to do so, in my personal opinion. But let me know what your guys' thoughts are here in the chat or in the comments here. I'm happy to help out and to answer anything that I might, or leave some suggestions as you would desire to talk about who your alternate options might be here as you look into Dark Dimension 7 and your planet. But appreciate y'all watching the video. And as always, guys, y'all be blessed. Y'all be safe.